Hello, hello, my loves. I'm so excited to be coming at y'all today. And I really want to talk about my soul mastery journey and what it's done for me. But I also want to give y'all a little bit of information on how you guys can actually start using this in your own life to process your own unhealed trauma or just like the agreements that you've made with life, because that's basically what trauma is. Trauma is a response in the body that happens when something outside of us causes our body stress and the need to protect ourselves, right? And so, for example, this is just like a really, really easy example. Like if you're out in the woods and a bear comes up, like your body is going to respond in a certain way to seeing that bear, right? And it's probably going to want to get away from it, right? Like it's going to have a flight response where your body is instinctually going to want to get away from something that could hurt you, right? It's the same thing, like with anything in life, right? Like for me, this really showed up in my conversations and my ability to handle like conflict. What I noticed is that anytime anything confrontational would come up in my life, I would avoid it with every fiber of my being. I would try to ignore it. I would put it off as long as possible. I wouldn't want to have the so-called tough conversations because I was afraid of the outcome. And that was just my body's natural response to these things because of stuff that happened to me in my childhood and because of these subconscious beliefs that are just running in the background, right? My habits, I'm used to doing it this way, so I do it again and again and again, even though maybe it's not serving me. Maybe being able to openly communicate and handle conversations that may be a little bit more difficult with ease and grace is actually going to serve me better, but my body believes that it has to protect me from those things, so my body responds by not wanting to come into contact with those things, right? And so I want to talk about how soul mastery really helped me be able to navigate these things with a little bit more ease and grace. And the best place to start for this is going to be telling you guys about the 5 channels of awareness. And the reason why is because this is a foundation of somatic therapy. This is the foundation of somatic experiencing. This is what Kyra taught me inside of soul mastery as also the foundation, right? And she learned from somatic experiencing. So it's kind of like passed down, right? And the reason why these channels of awareness are so important is because we use them to digest stuck or unresolved trauma in our bodies or energy in our bodies, patterns that we keep repeating, right? Because we haven't actually allowed that part of ourselves to come in and be accepted for the way that it is without judgment. So what these channels of awareness do is they allow us to go from consciously thinking about something, right, to unconsciously feeling it in order for it to dissipate and change. It then gets transmuted or alchemized into something else, right? And we see this happen all the time, especially like with little kids, if they get really upset in a store because they're told no and they throw like a temper tantrum and they're upset for what, like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and they're kicking and they're screaming and they're yelling and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, like 10 minutes later, they're fine. It's because they didn't stop themselves from naturally responding to that in the way that their body felt was natural, right? And in that moment, they were upset, they were angry that they're not getting what they want, and they're not afraid to show their feelings, right? And so this is what essentially the 5 channels is going to allow us to do. It's going to allow us to accept every single emotion and response as being one that is needed, right? And that maybe perhaps some of these parts of ourselves need love and compassion and kindness that we would show a child, right? And so these 5 channels of awareness are really going to allow us to talk to the subconscious mind and figure out what may be holding us back from our dreams and our goals, but also holding us back from just like having better conversations, right? That, you know, how to handle the tough conversations, how to set boundaries, how to ask for what you want. Maybe there's like something that's just like holding you back from experiencing more love or joy in your life. And so these 5 channels of awareness can help you actually figure out what that is, right? At the very core level, right? Because it's great. We're all going to start out, most of us, when we go into a session, this is what I see. In a session, I'm going to try to get you to surf the channels of awareness, right? And most of us are going to start out in the mind channel because this is where we are most of the time, right? We live in the mind, we tell stories about things. This is where we can like problem solve, which is great. The mind is great for problem solving. If you need to get something done immediately and you need a problem solved, you're going to go to the mind. Or if you're recalling something that happened in the past, you're going to go into the mind. Like if you ask somebody about something that happened a week ago, maybe they're going to like look up and they're going to be thinking about it, and they're like, oh, well, this and this and this happened, and they're narrating a story for you, right? Well, the same thing happens in trauma responses. You're narrating a story for why that trauma response happens, and it's a lot easier to do that than to actually feel how you feel about it. Like sometimes the mind can be in a great escape if your body simply can't handle talking to that trauma yet. Like you need to build your capacity to do that. And so we start off in the mind. The mind is very conscious. We have a lot of control over the mind. This is something that we can control our thoughts. We can control the narrative. It's very easy. This is where we work on like positive mindset stuff and all of that stuff. And then the next channel of awareness is imagination. This is also a very conscious channel. This channel is where we vividly imagine things. Like if I were to ask you to close your eyes right now, in fact, just do that here with me. Close your eyes for just a minute. And I want you to imagine your refrigerator. Just imagine what color it is. Imagine where it is in your house. Imagine that you're actually going up to this refrigerator and you're opening it. And I want you to see what's inside of your refrigerator. Can you picture that in your mind, right? This is the imagination channel. We can even get our senses into this. Like perhaps maybe there's something in your fridge that you pick up and you start to smell. Maybe it's like a lemon or something else like like maybe milk, right? And you're smelling this, and maybe you can bring your senses into it, and we can imagine these senses coming through for us, right? This is also a very conscious channel. This is something that we have a lot of control over, but this allows us, this channel, I really feel like allows us to get into the lower channels. So instead of being in the mind where we're just telling a story, which is fine, like sometimes we need to do that, but it's better to actually, like if we're wanting to grow and expand and heal and change our behaviors and change who we are, then we need to get into the lower channels. So mind, imagination is where we can vividly imagine things. We have a lot of control over this as well, as I was just stating those things, like maybe something came in, maybe you were picturing the way you walk, maybe you were smelling different things than what I was saying, maybe you were just simply like imagining the light coming off of the refrigerator, like whatever that was, right? So we have the refrigerator, we have the imagination next, right? And so that's a very conscious channel. And then the next one after that is going to be posture channel. And this is, I would say, is kind of like in the middle. It's not all the way conscious unless we're really like focusing on it. A lot of the times our body postures are unconscious. There are little tiny micro movements and like things that we do that we don't always realize we're doing in response to outside stimuli. What's happening around us? How are we responding to it? How are our bodies responding to it? It's like, have you ever walked into a room and you've just like felt something was off, and maybe you noticed that your body kind of like contracted and you felt like some tightness maybe in your chest, and you were like, ooh, like I have a bad feeling about this, right? Like that's your body responding to the outside stimuli. And oftentimes this is unconscious. It's something that we don't really know that we're doing, right? Unless we put conscious awareness on it, unless we actually place our awareness on what the body is doing. And this is really going to allow us to see, by like studying these in the sessions as like a facilitator, what I'm looking for is how your body is responding to the certain things that we're going into, right? Like whatever we're working on, like say we're doing this and it's like a guided meditation. So at first we're kind of starting in the mind, and then all of a sudden we're in the imagination, and then perhaps we're in the body posture channel. And I'm just like noticing that like when we talk about a certain subject, I notice that your jaw gets like really tight, right? Like that's something that like I can point out to you. Hey, do you notice that like when we start to talk about this topic, like your jaw gets really tight or activated? Do you feel that? Does that feel true for you? And I can get you into the body posture channel. And sometimes just like getting into the body posture and placing our awareness around this postures that are automatically coming up can help us digest some of that energy that is there, right? it can start to change it. It can start to alchemize it, can start to move it. And then the next channel that we have, which is going to be quite unconscious, is going to be the sensation channel. These are things that just happen to us, right? Like whether, like, let's just take the example of like you walk into a room and you feel something is wrong, right? Like you can tell that something's wrong. Well, can you tell me what that sensation feels like in your body? Is it tight? Is it clenched? Do you start to feel really hot? Do you start to sweat? Do you like start to feel really cold? Do you get goosebumps? Like whatever the body's response is, and these sensations that come up, they're very much like unconscious, right? And that's when we really can start to digest the energy, because we can start to like notice what sensations come up around the things that we're working on, around the things that we really want to like heal and grow from and learn from. Because ultimately what we're doing is we're learning why we're responding to something in a certain way, what kind of agreements we've made it towards things in life that may or may not be serving us. Right? And we're doing it with from like a very non-judgmental place. So when we go into these like lower channels of awareness, we don't want to try to change what's happening. We actually want it to just allow it to just be what it is. So if we start to talk about something that's really uncomfortable and you start to get really hot and you can feel that fire maybe in your belly, and then you're just like, you want to sit with that fire, right? Like you want to sit with it. You want to allow it to be as hot as you want. You want to visualize it in your mind. Can you see that warmth? Does it have a glow? Is it a fire? Is it something different? Give it these things so that you can really like sit with it and allow that part of yourself, for whatever reason is trying to protect you from this thing that we're talking about, to actually do its job, right? Like let it actually finish whatever response it's having, so that then you can choose to have a new response, right? So the last channel of awareness is going to be emotion. It's the one we have the least control over. We really can't control our emotions no matter how hard we try. Have you ever like tried to act happy when you're sad? Like it doesn't work well, right? Like we just can't experience those frequencies at the same time because they're so different, right? And so instead of trying to change our emotions that come up, which is sometimes like our body has a natural response to push those things down. Maybe it's sadness or anger, and we've taught ourselves that those aren't good, so that then we push those down. And because we push those down, we have this big old knot in our stomach, and we're feeling into that knot, and we're feeling into it, and we're feeling into it, and we're just allowing it to be what it is. It's no big deal. Like we can feel, and then all of a sudden we get like just this wave of anger, or maybe we get this wave of sadness as we're like focusing on that knot in our stomach. And we're allowing those emotions to come up and out and expressing them in a really, really healthy way. And that's ultimately what we want, is for you to be able to express these emotions, every single emotion, in a healthy way. And you're also going to teach your nervous system at the same time that it's safe to experience a wide range of emotions, everything from happiness to sadness, grief, shame, guilt, all of those things, right? Because if we can teach our nervous system that it's safe, that we can handle those emotions, right, then we ultimately are going to have a really healthy nervous system, because we're going to be able to go from experiencing like sadness one moment, right, and we're able to kind of like digest that with like this process, right? We ultimately learn how to digest our emotions and how to let them just like be what they are without judgment and without trying to change them. And then all of a sudden they start to change, right? And all of a sudden we start to see things in like a new light. And so I really want to give you guys an example of this. Something that actually like happened to me in one of my sessions, because I think this is going to give you a really great idea of what it is that you could experience in a soul mastery session, and how that could also maybe help you. So for years and years and years now, I've had intense pain in my right side of my neck and in my shoulders. And when I first started like learning about soul mastery and how to like surf the channels of awareness, I would like kind of place my awareness there. I knew that it hurt, and I was trying to like feel into it, trying to let it be, trying to not judge it, and all of those things. You'll have to excuse the cat back there just messing things up. She always does, but I love her. And so I've been like working on like feeling into that and allowing it to be what it is. And I really just like couldn't break through it on my own. And I was working with my own somatic facilitator and therapist. And one day we were like working on like some inner child work, and I had connected with my inner child, and during this session I had also connected with my sister and her energy. Like I could just feel her presence there, and I was actually like vividly like imagining us like hanging out together and riding our bikes. We used to go camping all the time, and so like I was in this visualization of just like allowing myself to be there with her and to like remember what it was like to hang out and like have fun, and what we used to do when we used to go camping. And in that moment I just felt like this intense wave of like grief and sadness for the fact that like we don't do that anymore. Like, and in that moment I realized how much I missed my sister, like how much I missed hanging out with her, how much I missed just like being able to like just have fun with her, because like, we haven't been able to do that for so long because of the lives that we have currently. Our situation just doesn't really allow us to get together and do that right now. And so I just like realized how much I was missing her, and like I just cried and cried and cried and cried as I was like visualizing this, like visualizing just being with her. And I realized that I just had some really, really intense sadness, and that I needed to lean into that and allow myself to actually miss her. And it took me several days, even after the session. Like I felt a big release in my neck during that session as I was like going through, and I was allowing myself to experience missing her, and what that does, and all the sensation that it brings, and all the emotion was coming up, and I was just like allowing it to come out and allowing it to come out, and allowing myself to just like surrender to that and be held in that moment. Because that was another huge piece, is that my therapist really held me in that moment, and allowed me to let go, and reminded me that even if I'm having like these lingering doubts that this pain is gone, because that's what really happened next. Was like I felt the release, and I was like, oh shit, like what if it comes back? What if the pain comes back? And I was so scared that it was going to come back. So then like I had this intense amount of fear come in, and we were able to really like move through that, and I was really able to calm and regulate my nervous system. And over the next like couple of days and the next week, I felt things start to shift, and I could really just like tell that the pain in my neck was gone. And I really haven't had any neck pain since this one session. And the pain in my neck was associated to how much I missed my sister. And I hadn't allowed myself to really feel how I felt about that, right? Like I didn't even know that I was missing her until I allowed myself to actually go in and experience that for myself. And so just imagine, like maybe you have some chronic pain in your body. Imagine what that could be linked to. It's probably something that you not even like expecting, or something that's not even on your radar, but something that you actually need to go in and allow yourself to feel in order to heal it. Like that's what Soul Mastery does. It allows you to surf these channels of awareness, right? It allows you to get into the lower channels. You get out of your head and into your body, so that you can actually feel the things that you need to feel in order to feel better. Like after every single one of these sessions, I always feel better. Whether it's more calm, whether I have like a new awareness or a new insight, or perhaps I've healed from, chronic pain, like stuff that I never thought was possible is stuff that is coming up for me, and stuff that I've seen come up for other people that I've worked with, right? And so I think this is so amazing and beautiful. So if you want to start working with your own channels of awareness, I'm going to give you a little exercise that you can do throughout the week to just really tap into these. And so it's really just starting to notice what channel you spend most of your time in. So this week, just think about it. Am I spending a lot of my time in my mind, where I'm telling a story and I'm thinking thoughts, and it's just like overwhelming, and my mind is constantly online, and I can't turn my mind off, my thoughts off? It's just, that's where I live. Are you in the imagination channel a lot, where you're vividly like daydreaming, or you're zoning out? Maybe you're like disassociating and you're going into your imagination, where you're just like, you're imagining things, but you're not actually like doing any of the things. That could be potentially something that happens, I know, like, I use my imagination to dissociate sometimes. And so, like, what are you in the imagination channel? When are you in the imagination channel? What's happening that's causing you to go into the imagination channel? And you can really start to understand that. And then maybe you can start to notice, like, what kind of postures you're having. Like, what kind of posture are you having when you're talking with your boss? What kind of posture are you having when you're talking with a loved one? What does it feel like to perhaps give yourself a hug, and just like notice what it's like to send yourself love? What kind of feelings are you having as you give yourself love? This is a great thing to do, actually. It'll get you into all of this and all of the channels, right? Like, give yourself a hug and just close your eyes and imagine that you're sending yourself love. What does that feel like? What sensations come up? What emotions come up? What images come up? What thoughts come up around that? And just give yourself a hug for 60 to 90 seconds and just notice what it's like to give yourself a hug. And I'm curious to know, like, what comes up for y'all. Did you notice that at first you felt really great and that you were able to accept that love really, like, positively, and then the next moment it was like, oh, like, I'm sad that I haven't been giving myself love, and so then you feel sad about it? That's natural. Like, we naturally titrate from something really good. And when I say titrate, it's just like going from something that makes us feel really good to going to something that maybe activates our system or maybe feels a little uncomfortable, right? So we go from, like, feeling the love to maybe experiencing some sadness, and then we sit with the sadness and we let it be, and then all of a sudden we're back and we're feeling love again, and maybe we feel love even more. It's expanded and it's grown because we let ourselves experience the sadness. As you can see where this is going, right? And there's so many different ways to use these channels of awareness. And I want you guys to just practice that this week. This is like the beginning. This is like what I teach all of my clients. This is what I was taught. This is how I started really, like, healing from somatics, was using these channels of awareness. And so I just encourage you guys to do that. Try the little hug exercise and then let me know how it goes. Like, drop me a comment or send me a message. I love when people, like, ask a question or send me a message. Let me know their stories, because it gives me a chance to really just, like, interact with you and get to know you on a deeper level and respond to you and maybe, like, give you some insight while also learning about your insights and your wisdom and what you got out of it, you know? And so I would love to hear from you guys. Feel free to send me a message. Feel free to comment. Whatever you feel called to do is what you should do. And I hope y'all have enjoyed this little lesson on the 5 channels of awareness and how you can start using somastery, facilitation, and therapy in your own life. And I'll talk to you guys really soon.